Hi, everyone. Really excited to have you here this morning. We already have a couple hundred people with us bright and early, or it might be late in your day. I'm really excited to be here with you all. We'll give everyone just a minute. Hey, Rachel, first one in. We always love it when people say hello and where you're from. Got James as well. I see some familiar names. Hi, Sarah. So just come on in, say hello. We're going to be a big group today, which is really awesome. We're so excited to have you all here today. It's going to be a fun one. This is our crazy idea for thinking about how we can come together with professional development and really think about how to kind of take this moment in time and work together. We're going to start with a keynote that I'm going to do that's pretty like a good lead in, and they're going to have a ton of time today to learn, experiment, and innovate. And so keep it coming. I see people from all over. Amazing. You can already tell we have people from, it looks like 20 countries already. So how amazing is this? But we're going to get started because we have a really full packed day. I'm Amanda Bickerstaff. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AI for Education. We are fully focused on the responsible adoption of generative AI in schools across the US and the world. We're really excited to have you here today. This is our first ever AI for Education Summit. We're hoping this is not the only time that we do this, but today we're really going to be focusing on this idea of learning, experimenting, and innovating with generative AI. And so, as if you've ever been to a webinar with us or this is your first time, we love this to be something in which it is a good experience for everyone. So the first thing is, I'm just going to say it, let's be kind and respectful of each other. You are a community of practice today. You're going to learn from each other as much as you're going to learn from us. Like, you're going to learn from the ed tech tools and our innovators later today. But please be mindful of each other. We're coming from different cultures as well. So just always take a little bit of like time to recognize that let's be kind. So that's number one. Number two is get involved. Like, we have the Q&A. I love that you're already saying hello in the Q&A. I'm sorry, in the chat. You also have the Q&A functions where you can ask me questions or the other presenters as we go forward. We also have this huge part. We're going to do experiments. So we're actually going to do a couple things. This morning in the Learn section, Joe Rosenbaum and I are going to do some prompting with you all. So we actually would love you to prompt with us. And then all of the different sessions that we have in the afternoon, you'll be able to actually experiment with the different tools. And the last thing is, you have a great resource. Please share it. It's going to be great. If you have something really good, always with the idea of like sharing something awesome. But we're not here to, kind of sell to each other. We're here to learn together. So I'm very excited to have you all here. And we're going to get started. So I'm going to start out with why are we here? Why are you getting up in the morning or wherever you are? It might be in the very late at night, is because we've been talking about artificial intelligence, and it might feel like we just started talking about this. And so one of the things I want to say is, like, if you have one of these, if you have a cell phone or you have a computer that you're on with us today, we've been using AI for a really, really long time. And so I'm going to ask everybody, artificial intelligence in the case of my phone, one of the ways that artificial intelligence is helping us out is that when I open my phone, it's using my face and it's creating a biometric signature in my face that actually changes as I have a different hairstyle. It's even if I get a little bit older, or if it's you have an interesting mustache if you're in November here in the U.S. And so that's a form of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s. And so does anybody if you want to throw in the channel, we'll go really quickly. But if you have an idea of other artificial intelligence that's not ChatGPT, throw it into the channel. But what we have is all around us is artificial intelligence. This is something that is not just this moment in time. Yes, so surveillance cameras, Siri, spell check, absolutely spell check. We make a joke that, when you're frustrated, it maybe doesn't let you curse. You've got Amazon, Duolingo, absolutely. You've got Google Maps. I'm in New York City, so it'll often tell me when I'm visiting a school or district that I need to leave 3 hours in advance because it's used to me walking. Google Calendar, yes, absolutely. All of these things have autocorrect, et cetera, have been around for a really long time. And so we start here because it might feel like all of a sudden everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. But in reality, we just were using artificial intelligence without realizing it. So for example, if you're an educator or you're a teacher or a leader, you have been using artificial intelligence to help students study, for their test taking, to keep track of their attendance without really knowing that. And so what we want to do is kind of take the sting out and recognize that this is not something that just happened. It's something that's been built over many, many years. So when we think about artificial intelligence, it's very important. You might have seen this before with us. And what we have here is, it's funny, someone said photo math. I'm wondering if it's a math teacher as another example, kind of a precursor to what we have going on right now in terms of students being able to use generative AI to do their homework. But we have here is this is one of our great images from our website, which is this idea of what are we talking about right now? So while artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, in the last a year and a half, we've been talking about something quite different, and that's generative AI. So what we see is we start with artificial intelligence, which is something that even Socrates talked about back in the day, of these ideas of thinking machines. And what we were talking about, though, mostly is machine learning. And so machine learning is essentially if you had Pandora, where it gives you your radio station, it's going to have an algorithm or many algorithms that are going to start understanding what kind of music you like. That was a form of machine learning. And so we have a lot of machine learning still around us. It's still the most common form of artificial intelligence that are in the systems that we use. And then that is something that can be quite expensive, takes a lot of data, and is something that is very limited in scope. And if we're really trying to create machines that can think like humans, we had to look deeper. And we actually looked at the architecture of the brain. And so we looked at how the brain works. And that's something that has led to a theory that's called deep learning. So when you talk about ChatGPT, or you're talking about Claude or others, we're talking about deep learning systems. And that form of that, what we're talking about mostly today, is generative AI. So generative AI is this ability to take a whole bunch of training data and use your input to create something new. So whether that's text, audio, images, video, or code. In fact, the number one use case of generative AI is going to be coding. Up to 40% of generative AI use is actually used to create more technology. And so when you are talking to, when you're typing to a conversational AI like ChatGPT, you're actually doing a form of computer science. But instead of the language of computer science being C++ or JavaScript, it's now native language. It means that as you type, as you talk, even if you have your phone with ChatGPT, your input is actually the way that you're going to drive the computer to create something. And so it is something that is going to be really unique, and actually something that allows everyone essentially to be able to create with technology like never before. And so that's something that's really exciting for us today, because when we do our next session, you're actually going to be able to do prompting, whether you've done it a lot or you're just getting started. We're really going to dig into what that looks like and how you can get the most out of it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is that this has happened pretty fast. And so what we see is that it's been a long time since we're trying to do things like handwriting recognition or speech recognition. It took decades. And then image recognition is pretty funny. If you've ever done a CAPTCHA where you have to hit all the buttons that are tires or a motorcycle, that can be very frustrating. We were actually helping train image recognition models because we were the data. But what we see in 2016 up into where we are today is this rapid increase in our ability to do computing, where we have these new types of chips called GPUs and a new form of deep learning called transformers. And then all of a sudden we start to see these very, very fast increased, reading comprehension, language understanding, common sense completion. And what you'll notice is a lot of those things are what we assess in schools, which is why we're also having a lot of conversations about students, what students are doing and how they're using AI in ethical or unethical ways, is because we see a lot of this really huge impact and this rapid advancement, meaning that we have essentially a calculator for the humanities now. It's going to be something that really can write essays and do research paper, write research papers, etc., which is really fascinating. One of the reasons why we like this here is that it's something where we cannot ignore what's happening. This is not one of those times as educators that we can like close our door and the thing will go away. It's a fad, it's a hype cycle. What we see is that actually these tools are going to be improving at a very, very fast rate. And they are something that are already transforming our world and will continue to transform our world. So that's why you're here with us today, because you recognize that. But some of your students or your colleagues might not. So we hope that you can bring that back to them and help them understand that this is something that we need to come together and learn about, because it's not going to go away. If anything, it's just going to continue to be an impact on our lives. So this is just the year in ChatGPT. Like if you want to see, like we had November 30th is when ChatGPT went live. And what you'll notice is that if you're not in the US, or maybe you're in New York City where we are, that almost immediately did New York City ban ChatGPT. And then we had the release of ChatGPT 4, which is still considered the top, like we call it a frontier model, but GPT-4 class models, the ones you have to pay for, are going to be the best still on the market. Like we haven't seen a rapid advancement past that yet. We see things like Khan Academy and Khanmigo very quickly get into the work and start to build, essentially like their homework help, their tutor. You start to see that actually New York City reverses the ban, although most schools still don't have access to ChatGPT. But one of my favorite things that's really interesting is that in June, we actually see a dip, and the only time we've seen a dip in ChatGPT usage. And it was really interesting because people are like, oh my gosh, it's done. It's absolutely not coming back. And then what we see is that it came right back up in September. And can anybody guess why that was? It's because teachers and students were out of school and over the summer. And so what we saw is that then there is a large amount of traffic is actually being used for schoolwork, for planning, et cetera, exactly, school holiday. And so the reason why we like this is that it's been a very short time. And I want to always contextualize. I don't know if you remember the, dial-up internet, if you're old enough, or the first iPhone, or I always joke that, Apple Maps, the first time I used it, told me I was in a river. I was definitely not in a river. And so what we do though is then what we can see is that at the beginning stages of technology, no matter how fast it is growing, and it is growing very quickly, it only took 5 weeks for ChatGPT to hit 100 million users. 5 weeks. It's still not very good yet, right? And so we have to be really cognizant of what it can and cannot do, and we can't fully trust this technology yet. And so one of the things we also want to recognize is that we absolutely understand that this is not just impacting our schools. It's actually really interesting. This is impacting all industries. So we know a lot of companies are starting to use generative AI. There's an International Monetary Fund put out a worldwide study that said up to 40% of jobs globally will be impacted by generative AI in the next decade, with full 70% in the US, 60% in the UK. So a very, very high amount of impact. We see that a lot of tasks can be automated. But the last thing is we focus here a lot on equity. We really think about how do we think about this in a manner in which it's going to support the most people. And what we see is that a lot of the jobs that are at risk of being deeply impacted by generative AI are actually held by women and people of color. And so I think this is very, very important to understand that this is something that is going to be, if we don't take control of it and think about it and make sure that our teachers are going to be, our students even, and our teachers of all types are going to have access to these tools, and it actually is a digital divide that could potentially become larger and larger. So what we want to do is make sure that we're thinking about this time and trying to build generative AI literacy very quickly so that we have an opportunity to make sure that people aren't left behind by this transformation. And so I don't know if does anybody feel like this? Do you feel like this little girl with the, you've got the fire hose? Yeah, a couple, I heard some people saying FOMO. I think we all feel like this little girl a little bit. And so it is happening very, 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 very quickly. And I kind of love all the emojis, keep them coming. It's quite funny. I tried to use an image generator to do this, and it was just better to use an actual little girl. And so it does feel like it is going so, so, so fast. And I want to make sure that everyone recognizes that when you're here today, my goal and our goal is not that you leave this day thinking you're an AI expert or wanting to be an expert. If you do, amazing. If you already are and you're thinking about this, amazing. But it is more about you being an expert and the things you're already expert in, and then using this technology to go further, to augment, to like be able to create a better teaching and learning environment if you're a teacher or a leader, etc. So what I want you to do is not focus on all the different like little teeny things. What I want you to do instead is start building your capacity. Start using these tools and start applying these tools in meaningful ways so you don't feel like this little girl. Let us at AI for Education feel like this little girls. And then what we'll do is we'll help and partner with you like today to be able to be in a position where you can start to augment and change your teaching and learning or the work that you do outside the classroom. And so one of the other things is there's this like that FOMO thing, like it's too late, it's too late. And I hear this all the time when we're in schools and districts and talking to teachers and leaders or even talking to companies. And I have to say, this is probably what we see the most, and it's still really early. And in fact, a RAND study came out a couple weeks ago that said the same thing, that about a third of teachers have used generative AI. But really it's only about, between 10 and 15% that use it regularly. So if this is your first time together with us and you're going to prompt for the first time today, amazing. You're going to love Joe in a bit. It's going to be fun. Or if you're at that 2% that use it all the time, that's amazing too. But it isn't too late to get started. You are absolutely here together today to do that. But like Lisa just said in the chat, like it would be great to get people to try it. And what I will say is that when we do our introduction to generative AI PD, it does not matter if a teacher has been a 25-year teacher or a 2-year teacher, doesn't feel comfortable or not, that when we use our prompt library and do our training, everyone gets so into it. They understand what can happen and what value can be made for them. And so I think some of it is just getting over the barrier to get some good PD and try it out because it isn't too late. Also, just the impact on students as well. I think what I see is like the pyramid is at the bottom of the pyramid. Students are using these tools at a pretty good clip, especially as they get older. Then you've got teachers, and then it's almost like you've got leaders. And so they have used it the least is what we see usually because of a lot of competing priorities. But what's really interesting about this chart is a lot of students aren't using these tools just to cheat. And so, but I think that's what we think is AI is for cheating only. And then what we have here is that actually when you think about is that students are using AI. They're using it a lot for personal use, whether that's with character AI, where you can talk to 18 million avatars that could be your cool best friend. Like, another story about talking about students creating relationships with bots if they don't understand that these are not thinking machines. That's another story. But we have personal use, like Snapchat AI is very popular, and then use it for school. But then this is what I really want to talk about is that AI, artificial intelligence, has been assistive technology for a very long time, meaning it has been helping students with disabilities through automatic speech recognition and all different types of AI technologies. So we actually see that students with disabilities themselves are using these tools more. And I also see a lot of special education teachers adopting these tools already because they actually see the value. And it's hard. It's hard to be a special education teacher. And it's definitely hard to be a student with disabilities in a lot of ways. We do not create systems that really support them. So there are some real opportunities to get out of our way a bit and stop thinking, oh no, AI is only for cheating. But actually, students are using these tools in meaningful ways that go outside the classroom. So some opportunities for educators. So this is what we see happening around like this very early stage. And you'll actually see a ton of these places that are going to, so when we do the experiment session, that have things like automating admin, which is like doing, like I would say like a lot of the tools we have later are thinking about parts of the teaching practice, whether that is lesson planning, creating resources and materials. We see things like more AI graders, which take with a grain of salt, because remember, these technologies are very new. But we see that that's the big use case so far, is like, how can we make the out of classroom time better for teachers? And then hopefully start to see that teachers are able to build better instructional materials that meet the needs of their students. Number 2 is a thought partner. And so these tools are designed to be creative. They do not work. First of all, they are kind of crazy. They're not that reliable. Sometimes they don't work as expected, but what's really great about it is it can be a beautiful place for creativity. And so one of the things that's really interesting is I have an example. We were doing a professional development in New Jersey, and a creative arts teacher was 3 years she's been teaching, and she had 40 good project ideas for students to do creative drawing. And I showed her how to use one of our prompts in our prompt library, and she came out with 500 project ideas, some of them amazing, some of them not so great, in 3 minutes. And so she went from having a very small pool to support students and engage students to having this big pool, and actually understanding now that she could create bespoke, targeted creative project ideas for her individual students and what they liked and loved, or even what was challenging to them. And so I think that this is something that's really, really interesting. So if you have, like you have your person that needs a little bit of like creative partnering, you have a mentor teacher, but maybe they're not around, or a peer, ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera, are really great at that creativity. And the last thing is we're seeing more and more of tools that are being created specifically for actual schools. So you can see out, and if you're in the US, LA has their Ed chatbot. We see chatbots kind of coming up. But what the cool things is that schools actually and systems have lots and lots of data, and usually they give away that data, right? But what now, because these systems that they don't create, but now that you can actually create your own chatbots and your own generative tools, it actually becomes something where the power stays in the hands of districts. And we would talk after this with Joe, we'll talk a little bit about a chatbot that we actually built to build generative AI literacy, and you can see how we did it. For students, we have all kinds of stuff. First of all, I saw some things in the chat about how students use these. My favorite thing in the world is when I talk to an ed tech provider that's building a grading tool, and they are so surprised when students use their tool more than teachers. So for example, if you're in the UK and you have the GCS, you have your exams coming up, I'm going to say the acronym wrong, GSC, and then you have the essay component, that there's a grading tool in the UK where students are actually using it to give them feedback on their essays at like 2 a.m. Because the thing is, like, what's so funny is that, like, if you call your teacher at 2 a.m., they're not going to be happy with you, right? But if you get like just really good feedback, or even just okay feedback, and then you start to refine it and you do it on demand, it starts to unlock students like agency, and also like helps them out. So you see personalized learning. We had a student on stage at one of our student panels that said he was struggling with a math tool, like a math topic. So we had ChatGPT explain it to him in terms of bananas instead of instead of money, and he understood it. And another teacher, it was also in a advanced math class in his master's program. He loves soccer, was really struggling, and so what he did is he had the tool explain it to him in soccer terms, and he started to feel much more confident and started building more of his mathematical ability. So we see intelligent tutoring is kind of the holy grail. It's a thing that we actually have a lot of research in traditional artificial intelligence, and it can really help students meet their potential. Nothing is that good yet. We know that something like Conmigo is more of a homework help right now than an intelligent tutoring, because tutors they don't just know the content, but they know the kid, they know the progression, they know how to ask questions, they know when to give hints, they also know when to help answer. Whereas these tools are not at this stage ready for that level of complexity, which is very similar to why they're not ready for a level of complexity within a classroom either. They also are a great opportunity for thought partners. We know so many great students that are building their own tools, that are entrepreneurs at 15. It's pretty amazing, but it's also something we know. So you're going to hear from Anna later today in our showcase, and she is a creative writer, and she loves it for creative writing. She actually uses it to help her think through her topics and get feedback, and she absolutely loves it. And then finally, about accessibility, which we've talked about. And so this is something that is just a really great way to start getting our heads around what's the possibility. But there are major limitations. And so we are the type of organization that you always have to balance. With it is a technology, it is a tool, and they have significant limitations, especially at this early stage. The first is they have limited knowledge bases. So the way that these tools work, if you're using conversational AI, they actually have training data that helps them build essentially the model of how words go together, because these are predictive engines. And so they have limited knowledge bases. So you can actually ask a model what their knowledge base is, and it usually gets it right. So if you ask ChatGPT, actually ChatGPT 4 just has another update to December 2023. But what's really interesting is like if you asked right now, if you went to ChatGPT 3.5 and asked if Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce in the US were dating, it would not know. And so that's a very, and I got to tell that joke in Kansas City where Travis Kelce plays. So it went over really well. But it's the idea that if you are using these tools and let's say your standards have changed, so the Ontario standards have changed, and you go into these tools and you ask for a lesson plan with Ontario standards, they will be wrong. And so this is really important for us to understand. And Joe is coming up next. Everyone, Joe is going to be our next presenter with me. And he said Taylor's relationships are important. But we have limited knowledge bases. The second is there's bias in training data. We cannot talk about artificial intelligence without talking about bias. It is impossible. We are biased. And the way these systems are trained are on human data. And that human data is going to not just reflect our biases, but they also are going to amplify them and exacerbate them. And so it's really, really important to understand that you're always on the lookout for bias and outputs, because sometimes it can be very hard to see and sometimes it can be very easy to see. And the final thing is something called a hallucination. And that's the term not by us, but from people that actually named it in technology. But that's where things essentially these tools don't have, they don't know right from wrong, but they're always trying to make things up. They're always making things up and trying to be the right answer. But sometimes it's just wrong. Sometimes it just gets it wrong. And so it works inconsistently or it gives you the wrong answer. And so you have to be aware to always verify your outputs, both for bias and for hallucinations. But here's an example of a bias. So what we have here is we asked DALL-E 3, which is the image generator in ChatGPT 4, to give us a conventional CEO. And what we see is probably unsurprising is we have a white male at a table presenting. And so we're going to see that a lot. But then we asked for an unconventional CEO. And I would like you to take a moment to think about an unconventional CEO, what that could look like. Maybe it looks like me. Maybe it looks like someone from a different culture, race, ethnicity, etc. But no, what we got was actually another guy, maybe the same guy, but with colorful pants. This is real. We were able to replicate this. We did this twice. And so what we have is conventional CEO and then unconventional CEO, which is fun outfit. And the best part of it, if you see right here, he's actually standing over a woman. And so it is a lot. And Joe, I'll get you this suit if it goes well. But yeah, we have this really funny thing that these are very, very sometimes it can be really bracing, but sometimes it can be really funny. And if you wanted to make sure that teachers and students know to check for bias, it's a good way to do it. So we're going to kind of start wrapping up a bit because we're going to move into next session. But I do want to talk about the elephant in the room. So Amanda DePriest, I have two Amandas that are helping us today. So Amanda DePriest is our instructional designer. She's amazing. She's built this wonderful slide and our little elephant robot. But one of the things that really is a big concern is this idea of that AI is for cheating. And so I don't want to gloss that over because students do cheat. And so we see that there is a study out of Stanford in the US that's been looking at cheating behavior in high schools for a long time. What they find is that it's between 60 and 80% of students show some kind of cheating behavior. So it's quite high. And that's a bigger question for us. Why are students cheating? There are a lot of reasons. It's not just because they are lazy. There are lots and lots of reasons. Maybe they find it not engaging, etc. But what they did is they went back with a hypothesis that if everyone was thinking that AI is for cheating, they had to increase. And what they did is they went back to those schools and they found that there was not more cheating. Instead, it was different cheating. So this is the thing. It wasn't more, but students are cheating differently. We see that through search volume. They are using generative AI to cheat, but before they were using essay mills or friends' notes or their parents. I have a funny anecdote. I was at a school and a student was accused of AI cheating. They called their parent. And the parent said, "Oh, no, I did the kid didn't cheat with AI because I helped them do their project." So, it was okay, the old school form of cheating is okay. But I just think that this is something that we have to understand. So what we think a lot about, we're talk about throughout the day is this idea of if you're transparent in your use, like these are three things we'd love to see across the world in terms of AI usage right now, generative AI, is that transparency of use is very important, like that we're using these tools. We'll talk about it. We just presented something to a district customer and actually said that we use GPT-4 for some of the language. That if you are transparent as an educator or leader, then your students will be more open to sharing. The next is you always verify outputs for that accuracy or bias. And then it has to be original. If you're able to do a paper in one prompt, is that really your paper? And so, like, we need, or the same thing with a lesson plan. If you can do a lesson plan in a prompt, is that really your lesson plan? Where is your level of originality in what you're doing? I see some things in the chat that I do want to recognize is that we do not think, and I'm going to say this twice, we do not think that you should be using and relying on AI detection tools. You will notice that we do not have any in our experiment session because we do not believe that these tools, they do not work reliably. They can be biased against non-native English speakers. And they are just something that if you're going to use an AI detection tool and it catches cheating, you are catching bad cheating, everybody. And I promise you, you probably already know that student has cheated. So please, 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 if you are new to this world, do not rely on AI detection. So that's off my soapbox, and I see all like people's other soapboxes. So, okay, so we are at the 30-minute mark. And so yes, when I say AI detection tool, I mean something like a Turnitin, a copy leaks, etc. So, okay, what does this mean for you? So you're here with us today. We're so happy to have you here with us. I cannot tell you how amazing that we are in this world and doing this work together. We launched this just about a month ago, and to have now, thousands of people hang out with us, I just can't thank you enough. But this is the goal, and this is our theory of change. So the first thing that I want us to do today is we're learning together. So hopefully you learned a little bit already, but we're going to be building AI literacy today. And I want you to think about this in terms of your community as well. Take back what you learned this morning to your community. So what we're going to have is some real good time to do this. But remember, don't be that little girl. Do not, you don't need to have it all in. You don't need that, try to be, remember everything and read everything. We want you to focus on building capacity, not expertise. You are going to build capacity. You're going to learn how these tools work. You're going to use them. You're going to try them. You're going to fail. And then we're going to talk about that in a moment, but you're going to build your capacity. And then you're going to build the capacity of the people around you. The next thing is we're going to experiment. How fun is it that we have all these amazing tools, like so many builders. We've got like Adobe, Magic School, we've got School AI, we've got Almanac, Course Mojo, Inquire, amazing tools. And you're going to get to do that. And that's what we want you to do outside of today too. The only way you learn about this technology is by using it. You cannot learn about generative AI without using generative AI. So be curious, try out new things. And then fail, guys, it's almost great that you fail at something because then you know what you really want, but also the next time that model gets better, maybe it'll work. And so please, please, please experiment. You don't have to use 1,000 tools, everybody, but use like one or two that you really like, and that's cool for us. And the last thing is to innovate. I saw this in the chat. If you are using generative AI to make more worksheets and to reinforce existing practice, that is not what we want you to do. This is a forcing mechanism to change our schools for the better. We cannot have a system that does not work for students anymore. It's just not possible because the busy work, the old outdated systems that we've had that do not meet students where they are, that do not engage them, and often do not accurately measure their learning need to go away. And so the only way we can do that is if we build our capacity and learn, we experiment, and then we start innovating. And so I want you to adopt an innovation mindset because I want you to take this back to your systems, whether you're a leader, a student, a teacher, you are a nonprofit professional, whatever you are, please adopt that innovation mindset because we have to reimagine the world. So this is what it's going to look like today. So first is we have our learning. So next is Joe and I. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out of this. This is going to close, and you guys are going to come join me and Joe for the prompt engineering. Professor Synapse is super cool. It's Joe's first meta prompt. He's super great. We're going to do that together. So everyone get ready to have like your favorite generative AI tool. If you've not signed up before, we can use anything like ChatGPT, Claude, or you can use Gemini. Next is an AI education showcase. So it's going to be a little bit of a clip show. So we have district leaders, we have teachers, and we have students that are going to talk about how they are adopting AI. And then you have a break. And this is the cool part is we're going to have networking tables available. So you can go and network with each other. And that'll start at 11:30, which is super awesome. Then we've got our experiment phase, and this is where you're going to see and be able to actually partner with these different organizations. And so you can pick from you can pick, I would suggest pick one for each one. All of these will be recorded. So if you want on demand later, let's say that you absolutely wanted to hang out with Adobe and Phobis, which is an amazing German company, or alongside around mental health, and you can't figure out how to do all of them, just come back and watch it. We also, Amanda DePriest and I will be doing something on our prompt library if you want to hang out with us. And then we'll have a short break again for networking. Please make sure that you're taking time and eating and getting up from your tables as well. And the last thing is the Innovate session, where we'll have some ed talks. We have a couple people live and a couple recorded around this idea of what's your moonshot in AI education. We have another short break, and then we have this is what I'm really excited about, is that usually you end with like thought leaders talking. No. We're ending with you, everyone in here building your own big idea, because you're going to make the difference much more than we are. And then finally, you have a closing call to action. So the last thing that I'll ask before, actually, I'm going to go here, is that we want to know more about you. So if everybody can either, and I'm going to ask, I am a data person. If you've known me before, you know I love data. I ran a company that was a data company before this, Safe Serving Analytics in Australia. But if you can just take, I promise it will only take 3 minutes, but if you can take 3 minutes to complete this form, so we just know a little bit more about you, where you are, what you do, but it's completely anonymous, but please, please, please do this. And it's here. We'll drop it in the next session as well. And we're going to get started. So we're going to prompt together. So everyone, we're going to close this session and we're going to go hang out with Joe. So just come out of this session and then we'll go over there. So I'll see you guys soon.